On today's video, I'm sharing some adorable neutral spring decor using supplies from Dollar Tree. So let's get started. For the first project, I will be using a couple of these blank white egg shaped signs with a wood grain texture on top from Dollar Tree. I'll also be using these spring napkins from Dollar Tree as well. These have a pastel floral pattern. I'm going to be making a thick two-sided wooden egg decor piece with one side showing the wood grain and the other side this floral pattern. I'm not going to be using these holes on top, so I add a little spackle to cover them up. The white has a bit of a light gray tone to it, so to not let that white spackle stick out, I'm just lightly brushing over the whole egg with some paint that matches. For the other egg, I'm going to paint the back side with the paint. Once the paint has dried on the wood shape that has been painted on the back, I'm going to place the napkin on top, and I'm just seeing which part of the napkin I want, and then I cut that out. The napkin has two layers, so I remove the bottom layer, then I apply a layer of Mod Podge on top of the egg, making sure to cover the whole surface. I carefully place the napkin on top, smoothing out any lumps. While that's drying, I want to distress the other egg, so I start with a sanding block, sanding around the edge, but then I switch to a coarse grit sandpaper. I really like the scratch marks it made. To make the egg thicker, I'm going to place one egg in front of the other with some blocks in between to give it some depth. I'm going to use about 35 tumbling tower blocks. You can use more or less, and I'm going to deepen the color of it with some Waverly Antique Wax. Then I apply that with a damp cloth. Once the wax has dried, I'm going to glue 4 blocks together side by side, and this is going to make the base to help the wooden egg stand up. I turn the egg over so that the back side is facing up, and I apply glue on the ends of the glued blocks. I place that on the bottom. You want to make sure it's flush with the bottom of the egg when it's standing up. Then I just take a block at a time and I glue it along the edge of the shape. I space them apart about a little less than the width of a tumbling block. You can definitely glue them closer together or farther apart. I wanted this to be double-sided with both sides showing that white wood grain, but since the egg wasn't symmetrical, which I later found out, I couldn't glue them back to back, but I didn't want the back to go unused, which is why I decided to Mod Podge that floral napkin so that no space is put to waste. Once I glue down the last piece, I put it aside for a bit. I just give it a minute to dry. So I grab the other egg that's already dried completely and I start cleaning it up. I use a sanding sponge to remove any excess napkin that's still sticking out. I just sand downwards along the edge and it comes off really easily, leaving a clean and smooth edge. Alright, so to put this together, I start by putting some glue on the ends of each block. Honestly, I couldn't even imagine trying to do this part with hot glue. I don't think I'd be fast enough, so I use wood glue, which will hold this whole thing together even better. I place the other half on top like so, and I just make sure it's placed evenly and it actually fit together nicely. I really like the way it looked already, but I wanted to add some words on it. I had this hello word from a prior project, so I wanted to do a similar one with the word spring. These wooden letters are from Michaels. To match, I paint them white, and then I get a popsicle stick and trim it to fit spring, and I apply some Waverly Antique Wax with a damp cloth. I wanted to add a border behind the popsicle sticks, so I trimmed down some Dollar Tree wood planks or slats, just slightly bigger than the popsicle sticks. I paint them with this beautiful lavender color from Hobby Lobby, so I apply a couple coats, and once it's dried, I glue the popsicle sticks on top. Now at this point, I really wasn't sure if I liked it with or without the word. Either way, it looks really nice, but in the end, I decided to just put the word spring on top. I really love how this turned out. Now this next DIY project is a great complement to the first one we just did. I'm going to be using the bunny on this Dollar Tree sign. I'm going to paint the bunny with this lilac paint from FolkArt. I want to add some texture to it, so I add some baking soda to the paint to thicken it up. So I paint that on the bunny using a foam brush. I also paint over the galvanized metal ear. After I apply the first coat, I'm going to add a second layer, this time with a little more baking soda mixed in. So I brush that on in sections until the bunny is completely coated. I'm really loving the texture of the paint. I want some of that metal peeking through, so I just brush out some of that paint. To make the base, I'm going to be using some scrap wood. I'll be gluing this piece, a 1x2, on top of this piece, a 5-gallon paint stick that's slightly bigger. I will be drilling a hole on the wood to fit this wooden dowel. The dowel is 3/16 of an inch, so I'm using a drill bit that's slightly wider. After drilling the hole in the center, I hot glue the wood together. I paint the wood with the same lilac color, and then I sand down the edges to distress. I place the dowel in the hole, and it actually fits nicely. I didn't need to add hot glue to hold it in place. I determine how high I want the bunny to be on the dowel, and then I trim it down. I add some hot glue to the top of the dowel, and then I place the bunny in front of it. You can turn it over and add more hot glue to secure it even more. I lightly brush some of the paint on the dowel. This turned out so adorable. I really love the color and the texture. I just love how it turned out. For this project, I will be using this bunny silhouette from Dollar Tree. I'll be covering up the holes with some spackle. I want to add some dimension and give it a distressed look, so with a sanding sponge I sand around the edges. And to scratch it up a little bit more, I use a coarse grit sandpaper. I take some jute string and I wind it around the neck a couple of times, and I just tie it in the back to secure it. To make a bow, I first snip a piece of string about 5 inches or so. Then I take some more string and I wrap it around my hand about 3 to 4 times. I slide it out, pinch it together in the center, and I add a little bit of glue, and I wind that extra string around a couple times. I secure the back with hot glue. Before I place that down, I'm going to place a couple of these greenery, which I pulled out of some Dollar Tree stems, and I glue them down on the jute. I'm keeping this very simple, but you can certainly embellish with more greenery and flowers as well, or you can even add a larger bow. Then I glue the bow right in the center of that. It's so cute. I'm going to display the bunny on an easel. This is just an old wooden easel that I've had, but you can also get these at Dollar Tree and paint it white, or just keep it natural. Just like the bunny, I distress the edges a bit. I decided to place that hello sign I made from the prior DIY on the bunny, and I think it adds a little more character to it. And that's it for this one. I really love how adorable this little bunny turned out. For the final DIY, I'll be using this photo frame from Dollar Tree. I want this frame to be able to display some flowers or stems. So for this project, I will be using 1 giant popsicle stick, about 7 square dowels, and 4 tumbling tower blocks. The popsicle stick is going to be part of the base, so I stand the frame up and I place a popsicle right in front of it. And then I place a tumbling block on top, one on each side of the frame. Then I mark the distance the block extends out to, as well as the width of the frame, and I trim the popsicle stick accordingly. I also measure, mark, and trim the square dowels. These are from Amazon, they're balsa wood, and these are best trimmed or sliced with a craft knife. In place of that, you can also use round dowels as well as skewers. Once everything has been trimmed, I'm going to brush over with some white acrylic paint. Now I don't want this to be too opaque. I do want the wood underneath to be seen just to match the frame, so I just brush over it lightly. I paint the rest of the wood, the popsicle stick, and the tumbling blocks, and I make sure to leave one side of the blocks unpainted. Once everything is dried, I'm going to go ahead and glue the blocks on top of the popsicle sticks first, before gluing it onto the frame. So I'm using some wood glue and I glue 2 blocks on each end. And it's going to look like a U. Now I'm not sure what happened to my footage, but to attach the pieces together I used a combination of hot glue and E6000. I can tell that the frame material may not hold well with hot glue and could possibly even come loose over time. Next I glue the dowels down. I place the first one towards the bottom, and then I glue the top, and then the middle. I'm just trying to space them out evenly. Now you can glue down more or less dowels, either way I'm sure it will look nice. I'm going to leave the string and beads the way it is. You can snip it off or even paint the beads. You can also hang this. There's a place that will hold a screw on the back, or you can hot glue some rope. But for this I'm going to have it stand upright. You can place some flowers or stems inside or use it as an organizer as well. I hope you enjoyed all these spring DIYs. Will you give it a thumbs up if you did? And make sure to subscribe so that you don't miss any of my new videos. Have a wonderful week. Bye!